The worst thing your opponents have ever done, dear chosen one, is to assume that your quiet indicates that you are giving up. However, as you and I both know, diamonds sparkle rather than scream. They believed it was a power move to leave you, that they would never catch up to you if you were replaced by someone superficial, that there were no repercussions for abandoning something sacred. However, regret no longer comes to them. It resides with them. They lost the one thing that mattered because they gambled everything. You. For what did they exchange you? A mask without a soul behind it, a loud diversion, a lifeless performance. You see the reality, even though the world may see their carefully chosen postings, their stage smiles, and their public displays of joy. In private, the fissures are visible. They can't see the laughter. The nighttime silence is overwhelming, because it was never just a relationship that they attempted to replace. It was a gift from God, and the peace is gone now that you're gone. The clarity is quite clear. The blessing is the same. Please take a time to leave a remark below before we delve further into this truth. For the mission, not for me. With every click, this message gets stronger, transmitting it to another selected individual who needs to regain their identity and recover what was taken from them. The fact that this communication is for us is indicated by each tap of that number, the ones they attempted to silence but were unable to do so. And I want to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who has helped this channel by using super thanks. Your kindness enables this message to reach people's hearts and transcend national boundaries. And remember this, if you're just here to observe, think, and recover, we also sincerely appreciate you. Being here is a gift, whether you offer or not. I also saw you. Let's chat now. Greetings, selected ones. The others weren't formed like you. Your soul is heavy. Your authority comes from your quiet, and the very rooms you enter are shook by your presence. They dreaded you for that reason. They could sense your strength before you even spoke, which is why they attempted to manipulate, tame, and distort you. However, they were unaware that you don't walk alone after being selected. They weren't merely fighting against a human when they attempted to dull your light. They were against the will of God. And treason is not forgotten by the universe. It retains receipts. Your lack of response. It wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a plan. They believed they had won because you didn't react, but they celebrated too soon. Your inner storm was silently building, and now you're becoming, and they're stuck performing. They attempted to substitute noise for you, but since you were more than a fleeting instant, your absence reverberates louder than their diversion. You served as the shift, the blessing, and the mirror. The memory of picking dust over diamonds is now haunting them. Therefore, if you are the chosen one who has been doubting your value, stop immediately. They weren't lost. You were lost. Not just the you who loved them either. You were the one with insight, the one who was sent. They weren't prepared for the one that contained light. This isn't retaliation. This is enlightening. The universe is letting them see what they left behind. Now, whenever they pretend to grin, your name echoes in the background like an unshakable reality. Know this, if you're still here. It wasn't arbitrary. It was divine. This message is a confirmation from you. It's going to hit differently next time, so let's get started. God's people, They feel bad about deceiving you. You were a gift. They selected a horrible piece of music. First of all, they used water to show vulnerability. Without it, they are already drowning. And the water was you. Selected one, because you opted for calm over mayhem. Have you ever been interpreted as weak? Because you preferred patience over pride, silence over yelling. They witnessed your composure, generosity, and unflinching quiet. They also believed it implied you had nothing to say or stand up for. However, what if the most powerful people are those who have nothing to prove? What if your quiet was a sign of heavenly restraint rather than surrender? It wasn't fear that kept you silent. The spirit within you knew, which is why you were silent. Storms don't make noise to announce themselves. They were mistaking your elegance for weakness, yet they came with power. It never occurred to them that you were the glue that kept everything together. They believed they could treat you badly and still come out on top. However, after losing a supernatural blessing, how can anyone succeed? After chopping off the hand that supported you, how do you climb? For you, the Lord will fight. You just have to remain motionless. Exodus 14:14. You see, your plan becomes your silence once you are selected. Your stillness is alignment, not absence. They mistook emptiness for your endurance. You weren't empty, though. They could never carry what you were carrying. Favor, fate, and calling. In their desert, you were water, and they spit in the well rather than treasure it. And now, without you, they are drowning in life. They breached a covenant they never even acknowledged, not because you're spiteful. They exchanged a puddle of convenience for a wellspring of purpose. Observe the downward spiral of their life. There is no peace, despite all the commotion and pretense. When Oprah Winfrey became one of the most powerful voices of our time, do you believe her family didn't regret ignoring her dreams? Even her own family once believed she was squandering her life pursuing a dream. The heavenly seed within her, however, was invisible to them. They simply saw the surface, just like the individuals who abandoned you. And they were kicked out of the garden when the fruit grew. Don't be fooled. No one makes fun of God. For what one sows, he will likewise harvest. Galatians 6:7. So why do you still feel responsible for their decisions? Because your light incinerated their shadows. Why are you doubting it? You were too much for them to leave. Your presence revealed things that they were unwilling to alter, so they fled. When you were silent, they laughed. When you were loyal, they laughed. While you were preoccupied keeping them together, they betrayed you. However, you were more than just a nice person. You were a humbled manifestation of a great gift. They prayed for you as a shelter, but you left them as soon as the storm passed. They are now standing naked in the rain since the shelter has been removed. The world is brighter because of you. You can't hide a metropolis on a hill. Matthew 5:14. For instance, Kobe Bryant. His fixation with greatness was viewed by some teammates and observers as isolation or arrogance. However, everyone wanted to claim that they had always believed in him when the championships arrived and the legend was solidified. However, a lot of them didn't. And it was too late for them to stand by his side by the time they understood the weight of what he carried. Does that sound familiar? Selected one. It's the same with you. They believed they were choosing freedom when they left. However, they ultimately decided to regret bondage. It was your responsibility to bless them. But betrayal doesn't chase blessings. Blessings come full circle. You're recovering because you loved past your breaking point, stayed longer than necessary, and contributed more than you should have. For the upcoming season, which will require your strength as well as for yourself, the cornerstone is now the stone that the builders rejected. Psalm 118:22. The very people who dreaded Frida Kahlo's intensity, individuality, and suffering abandoned her. But now, decades later, institutions all around the world are showing her artwork. Those who called her too much became irrelevant, but her tale endures. The impact you make, not the lies they told, will determine how you are remembered as well. Reprimand it when the voice that suggests you might have been the issue and that you should have turned down your light to keep them around starts to speak. No one sent you to shrink. You were sent to shine. You were never meant to be tolerated. It was supposed to be honored. You were not intended to blend in, but to change atmospheres. And they were aware of it. They attempted to weaken you because, deep down, they were more afraid of your truth than they were of your presence. Think about Tina Turner, who was mistreated, abandoned, and left with nothing more than her name. But she recreated her life, her career, and her value with that name. She was too far gone by the time those who had deceived her realized what they had lost. Like you didn't leave empty-handed. You left a changed person. What gives you hope that they will ever be able to see your ascent if they were unable to manage your light when you were injured? They no longer have genuine smiles. They have forced wins. They share photos, but their souls are dying. For you were more than a mere presence. You served as a portal. The point of access to favor was you. They're attempting to bring about what was never intended for them now that it's gone. Many are called, but only a select few are selected. Matthew 22:14. Proceed now, selected one, with clarity, not with resentment. They weren't lost. You were lost. They lost the rarest item the universe had ever given them in the process: access to a divinely designated individual. Secondly, they attempted to extinguish your blaze. Without you, they are now lost in the dark. Selected one. Have you ever observed that some people appear to be allergic to your light? Not because it hurts them, but rather because it highlights their shadows. Isn't it odd how people who have never come to terms with who they are unnerved by your simple presence? You injured them, but it didn't make them uncomfortable. You reminded them of who they will never be, which made them uneasy. They were not interested in your friendship. They desired for you to fall. Your triumphs didn't motivate them. There was a threat to them, and they made every effort to extinguish your flame when they noticed it burning steadily, silently, and unconcerned. However, how can you extinguish a flame that was created in the furnace of divine intent? If something was never lit by human hands, how can it be killed? The darkness cannot overpower the light, which shines in it. John 1:5. They never realized that your light was not brittle. It was holy. It was constructed in pain, in quiet, during times when only heaven applauded. It wasn't something you earned by winning people over. You have it from birth. The spotlight isn't there. It has a soul glow. They attempted to bury it with darkness, mockery, and venomous whispers that sounded like concern. Why do individuals think they have the right to criticize something they don't understand? Consider Maya Angelou, who became one of the most respected voices in the world after overcoming pain, silence, and injustice. Do you believe that everyone cheered? Number. Some people tried to keep her in the dark, mocked, and had doubts. Her spark, however, did not waver. It expanded, and yours will too. They grinned while feeding your fears. They didn't clap for you. Instead, they gave you backhanded comments like, "You're doing too much," or "Don't let it go to your head." They put up with you in the hopes that you would somewhat shrink so that they would appear taller. But selected one did. Why should someone who has been given the gift of illumination ever have to say, "I'm sorry for shining"? Rise and shine, for the Lord's brightness is upon you, and your light has arrived. Isaiah 61. The atmosphere changed in every room you entered, not because you were demanding attention, but because your soul carried something timeless and unstoppable. Furthermore, insecure people cannot cohabit with others who lack power, so they chose to compete rather than grow with you. However, how can you match someone who is acting in perfect timing? It's similar to what happened to Nikola Tesla, a man who was decades ahead of his time and who was plundered and mocked by those who failed to recognize his brilliance. Despite their best efforts, history ultimately crowned him. When you are selected, that is what occurs. Your light will always be there, even if it is temporarily obscured. The spark was in your possession, and everything fell apart when they sought to replace you, forced you out, and betrayed you. Because you were the heart of the tale, not simply a part of it. Their brightness wasn't being stolen by you. You were providing it. And the room didn't simply go dark as you left. It passed away. You will condemn every mouth that rises against you in judgment, and no weapon created against you will succeed. Isaiah 54:17. Tell me, chosen one, how long will you continue to doubt your value because others aren't able to carry your burden? How many times will you relive the instances when they grinned at you while applauding your quiet? When are you going to quit allowing envy to dictate the loudness of your why? What was made for your soul cannot suit someone who just sees the glory and not the process. So when they attempted to wear your crown, it burned their skulls. They only wanted your prizes, not your journey. Here's the reality, though. Fire comes with favor. Furthermore, they weren't made to withstand it. Chadwick Boseman is worth examining. Quiet, modest, and selected. He fought conflicts no one knew about, while others split. Silently, he carried greatness. And when they realized what they had lost, people who had before disregarded him started crying. The same is true of your presence. You don't need to make an announcement. More than your words ever could, they will sense your absence. Let light shine out of darkness, said God, and thus his light shone in our hearts. 2 Corinthians chapter 4:6. Those same individuals are now enacting peace. They upload photos of themselves grinning too broadly. But it's visible, isn't it? The dullness of what once shone, the hollowness in their eyes. They're coping because they're not rejoicing. They lost more than simply a special someone. The power that gave their world meaning was gone, along with the warmth and flame. Can you see what's going on? Without you, everything they believed would rise is collapsing. They forgot who was in charge of the stage while chasing spotlights. They looked for you, but misjudged your root. And now, they are stuck in a never-ending cycle of acting, pretending, and paying for a betrayal they cannot reverse. You're not lost, though. The same force that initially ignited your fire has now found you, and they will never be able to duplicate what was divine from the beginning, no matter how many times they attempt to mimic your brilliance. Like Joan of Arc, she was misinterpreted, mocked, and eventually martyred. Those closest to her did not honor her during her lifetime. History, however, demonstrated that the fire she carried was divine. You are that. The shallow are not here to understand you. Your purpose is to illuminate the deep. Thus, don't dim. Give up folding. Give up trying to explain yourself to people who aren't even close to you. Their darkness was never intended for you to compete in. You were destined to surpass it. Allow them to pursue acclaim. Allow them to cling to mimicry, clout, and likes. Allow them to exhaust themselves, attempting to duplicate what only the divine can produce. Because you are the source, the fire, and the original. Additionally, the world never lights a duplicate when it lights someone like you. Thirdly, they chose the shortcut, and now they have nowhere to go and must flee. Selected one. Have you ever observed how people who move quickly and superficially frequently wind up going around in circles? They stayed because you were mistaken, because you were correct. They fled. And it takes time to get right. They ran for spectacle while you were stitching seeds in silence. They were chasing illusions while you were patiently creating. What they hastily grasped is now slipping out of their grasp. Why do some people believe that speed, rather than content, is the key to success? Isn't it telling that they thought the brightest, loudest way was the most lucrative, confusing noise with value? However, they overlook the fact that the cosmos does not reward impatience. Those who align themselves with divine time are blessed. When something ends, it's better than when it starts. Additionally, the spirit of the patient is superior to that of the prideful. Ecclesiastes 7:8. They assumed you were stranded because of your quietness. They made fun of your concentration, described your discipline as dull, and implied that you lacked drive. You weren't trailing, though. You were in training. Your soul was being conditioned for something that was invisible to them. They opted for the shortcut. They are now stuck in a life that is full of silent falls and fleeting highs. Consider Steve Jobs as an illustration. He didn't hurry back or retaliate after being kicked out of Apple. After rebuilding and rethinking his approach, he eventually came back with innovations that would define future generations. Those who questioned him during his wilderness season were unaware that he was getting ready to lead from a location they were unable to reach. It's the same with you. They made fun of your procedure. They now envy your accomplishments. The spotlight was not what you sought. You were establishing the foundation. You were exercising wisdom while they were posting victories. You were going through character tests while they were entertaining people, since you knew that true elevation isn't noisy. There are layers to it. And those who mistake shortcuts for strategy cannot duplicate what God is creating in you. While the intentions of the diligent lead to riches, those who are hurried only end up in poverty. Proverbs 21:5. They desired attention. You desired to be firm. They followed the throng. You followed your calling. Guess who's still standing now that the noise has subsided? You. Who do you think is finally blossoming in the silence? You. Consider J.K. Rowling. She was formerly a welfare-receiving single mother who persevered with a novel that no one wanted. She took her time. She became more sophisticated. And the same thing they disapproved of spread over the world. Although it took some time, her breakthrough was permanent. That is the way of divine timing. In order to make you unbreakable, it makes you wait. Have you come to see why your road had to be more difficult? Why did it feel like your ascent took longer? Since movements cannot be microwaved, what you are carrying is for a movement rather than an instant. But as for you, keep going and be strong because your efforts will be rewarded. 2 Chronicles 15:7. They left you for something simpler, quicker, and with just enough sparkle to deceive a shallow heart. However, you weren't made to be simple. You were made to last forever. You weren't only becoming a successful person. You were getting indispensable. Isn't it odd that people can flee from gold because it's peaceful and instead rush after ephemeral glitter? As your harvest grows in silence, they are now left staring at meaningless achievements and choking on the dust of their own choices. Consider Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years behind bars. But compared to those who imprisoned him, he came out with greater dignity. Why? Because pressure cannot outlive intention. Furthermore, those who are genuinely selected do not crumble in the face of delay. Like you, they grew stronger as a result. Therefore, don't lose your confidence. The rewards will be abundant. Hebrews 10:35. Those who wager on shortcuts are now silently observing your movements. They go through your life as if they missed an invitation to ride a train. You're not looking back, though. You're not taking your time to describe your route. You are aware of the cost to arrive here, and they expected everything, but paid nothing. They mistook expertise for momentum. However, time is the ultimate revealer, and your consistent obedience is becoming overflowing as their phony triumphs fade. The solution to their hypothetical questions is you. You are proof that substance endures longer than speed. You simply outlasted them. The system that attempted to make you invisible was outgrown by you, and now they've put themselves at a dead end. They hoped for the promise and bypassed the process. However, shortcuts are not blessed by God. Submission is blessed by Him. He bestows perseverance. Those who stayed when it wasn't nice and continued to build when no one applauded were blessed by Him. Can you see it now? It wasn't your weakness that led them to betray you. You refused to be hurried. Therefore, they deceived you. And that obedience and patience have turned into your platform. Don't go back and explain. Don't say you're sorry it took so long. Just because they're finally squinting at your shine doesn't mean you have to shrink. Let your development do the talking. Allow your radiance to instruct, and allow their remorse to rest in the judgmental stillness they previously occupied. You become the path because you didn't merely decide on the longer route. Fourth, they broke their own blessing in addition to betraying you. Selected one. How many times do people mistake betrayal for a personal decision without understanding that it's a spiritual error? They were doing more than simply ignoring you when they left you. They were moving away from something much more important. They didn't leave you alone. Because of you, they left the safety that surrounds them. And now, they're living their lives in the open, and they experience it in ways that words cannot explain. Have you ever heard that quiet voice informing you that a certain person was destined to accompany you on your journey? They were positioned, not because they were flawless. For them, you were just that. An allocated connection, a lifeline cloaked in loyalty, a providential placement. However, discernment is muffled when ego becomes loud, and that's precisely what took place. You did not betray them. When they lost you, they betrayed themselves. Whoever walks with the intelligent gains wisdom, but the fool's companion will be harmed. Proverbs 13:20. Your presence made things clear. They didn't even realize they had storms, but your calm calmed them. They were improved by your protection, your energy, and your wisdom. However, they mistook convenience for consistency. They interpreted your promotion as a challenge. They hated you rather than learned from you. They also betrayed the very favor that kept them alive by doing this. Take a look at Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr's narrative. Once a friend, Burr grew envious of Hamilton's success. He challenged him to a duel and killed him in a moment of hubris. But Burr destroyed his own legacy by executing Hamilton. He was left ashamed, his reputation damaged, and he was plagued by the repercussions of betraying someone who could have improved the very world he coveted. That is the burden of treachery. It reverberates. The Lord hears the prayers of the upright, but he is far from the wicked. Proverbs 15:29. Thus, the people who betrayed you are now in a strange place. Things that flowed before become blocked. Once simple opportunities have become more complex. The tranquility that once enveloped them is no more. Although they secretly don't fully comprehend the reason, their spirit recalls. The moment they cut the cord to their blessing is recalled. Isn't it sad that people don't appreciate gifts until they've been used up? They didn't realize your friendliness was a front, so they assumed you were just being nice. They didn't realize you were the secret to their next level, so they believed they could replace you. You weren't just thrown into their lives. Like Moses, you were tasked with leading and guarding the Israelites. Additionally, they had favor in their grasp and gave it up, much like those who rebelled in the desert. Don't injure my prophets or touch my anointed ones. 16:22 in 1 Chronicles. Selected one. Heaven took notice when they betrayed you. In correction, not anger. You received no punishment. You were saved. You weren't abandoned. They raised you up, and you become the actual thing while they were occupied with seeking fake blessings. Your favor grew. Your alignment improved. Because you remained pure while they became irresponsible. What was before postponed is now flowing. Keep Princess Diana in mind. Although she was adored by everyone, her intimate circle, including her own royal family, betrayed her radiance. However, the reality overtook the lies after her passing. While their legacy crumbled, hers flourished. The objective of treachery preserved what was lost. That's also your tale. Even when you were interrupted, you got back up. Even though you were broken, you were never laid to rest. The Lord delivers the upright from all of their sufferings, though they are numerous. Psalm 34:19. And now, in the silence, those who betrayed you sense it, not by overt devastation, but through slow disintegration, broken relationships, lost opportunities, and missed promotions, leaving one wondering why things no longer fit. The solution is straightforward. Their alignment was you. Do you sense that truth's power? You were more than a person who happened to be in their life. Their elevation companion was you. They are currently climbing by themselves without a harness and with slick hands. They see your life from afar, and every victory you have serves as a reminder of what they lost, echoing in their soul. Think of the erstwhile inner circle of Mike Tyson. After realizing they had lost more than just their salary, many who had abused their access were eventually overcome with regret. They were no longer close to greatness. They believed they were simply severing a person's connection. In actuality, they no longer enjoyed the divine advantages of strolling closely with a chosen person. The truth is that you weren't too much, even though you, the chosen one, may still be inclined to ask yourself, was I the problem? Did I do too much? Should I have stayed quiet longer, given more, held on? You were exactly correct. Your hands were never clean enough to retain the precious energy you possessed. Don't be fooled. No one makes fun of God. Therefore, a man will harvest what he sows. Galatians 6:7. They are harvesting regret after sowing betrayal. Furthermore, there is no turning back, no restart, and no redo this time. Because the cost of straying from divine alignment is never merely emotional. It is always spiritual. Furthermore, nothing that was sent and later rejected can be recovered by any amount of pretending. What therefore ought one to do? You get up. You begin to celebrate who you are becoming instead of lamenting what has passed. You begin to see the protection and cease reliving the betrayal. You weren't expelled. Their pandemonium could no longer reach you after you were swept away. Allow them to relax in the quiet they produced. Since that is the reality they now live with, let them miss the version of themselves that only existed when they were connected to your light. They lost more than one person. They became out of harmony. And pleading won't bring alignment back. Repentance is the only way to get it back. Furthermore, not everyone has the humility to kneel. So go forth bright, whole, and unrepentant. You inherited the blessing they dropped, in addition to surviving the treachery. And that type of favor, music, never goes out of style. Fifth, they were unable to comprehend the task. Thus, they were given a lifetime of regret by life. Selected one. How many individuals pray for advancement, transformation, or a breakthrough, yet don't recognize it when it manifests in human form? When they lost you, they didn't miss anyone. A moment was lost on them. One of their assignments was overlooked. They lost a once-in-a-lifetime chance that was accompanied with purpose rather than cheers. You weren't just another connection buddy or spouse. The lesson was you. The reflection was you. Instead of burning, you were the bridge they were meant to cross. They fled to the comfort of their dysfunction and referred to it as liberation, rather than accepting the discomfort of change. He arrived to his own, and he was not accepted by his own. John 1:1. Some people, you see, are so preoccupied with status that they fail to see substance. They pray for guidance, but they reject it when it comes in a humble manner. You arrived in harmony with facts they didn't want to face, wisdom that couldn't be copied, and love that couldn't be purchased. Additionally, they viewed it as a burden rather than a blessing because it didn't boost their ego. It's similar to how, during his lifetime, Vincent van Gogh created works of art that no one valued. Because the brilliance didn't meet their expectations, they were unable to see it. The world didn't realize they had rejected greatness until he was gone. People treat the chosen that way, worthless, but not in the way their ego regards it. Have you ever observed how people mistake sincere advice for authority? How people interpret your constant presence as an attempt to restrict rather than to uplift them? You didn't attempt to control their path. You made an effort to make it better, to fix things. You weren't present. They didn't realize they needed what you were there to awaken. But it hurts to wake up. Unfortunately, comfort is their idol. A friend's wounds are faithful, but an enemy's kisses are dishonest. Proverbs 2:76. The test, they believed, was how long you could wait, how much you could take, and how silently you could put up with being downplayed, belittled, or ignored. However, the test was never that. Theirs was the true test. Were they able to see the divine in a human being? Were they able to admire a unique soul without attempting to acquire it? Could they grow with you rather than against you? And the response was no. They're stuck now. They did not rise when called, not because you failed them. This is the part that hurts them the most. You didn't ask for allegiance. You were its embodiment. You didn't plead for dignity. You radiated it. They weren't prepared either. They arrived with too little, not because you were too much. My people's ignorance has devastated them. Hosea 4:6. It is comparable to the tale of Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Tesla's innovative ideas were rejected because they didn't align with Edison's goals or ego. It took a while for Tesla to gain recognition. They valued volume more than value, and you were the breakthrough that made no noise. Unaware that they were undermining their own salvation, they either left or, worse, remained and betrayed you in silence. And now, they're plagued by what they might have been if they had respected your presence, not by your accomplishment. They are grieving more than just the breakup. The version of themselves that only existed around your light is being mourned. Some individuals only see clearly once it's too late. Why is that? Isn't it interesting that despite their best efforts to change the past in their minds, they are unable to overcome the reality that is ingrained in their souls? The prophet's reward will be given to the person who receives a prophet in the prophet's name. Matthew 10:41. They didn't have you in their lives by accident. They sent you, sent with wisdom, sent with the ability to heal and play a part in their change. However, because divine appointments have expiration dates, the universe closed the door once they misinterpreted the assignment. Additionally, the season changes if the test is missed. Are you familiar with Nina Simone? She was ahead of her time, strong, and misunderstood. Her truth was too much for others to take, therefore they rejected her. But they never had to approve of her truth. The world eventually caught up. However, the remorse of people who were close to her and mistreated her is still hidden. They scroll silently now. They contrast the tranquility you formerly provided with their current circumstances. They seek out fleeting relationships and attempt to reproduce what they previously rejected. However, nothing fits. Because you weren't a placeholder, nothing is satisfactory. The blueprint was you. Additionally, that blueprint has evolved. You've been promoted. You passed the test, not because you avoided the discomfort. While others strayed, you remained rooted. When others performed, You remained true to yourself. Even when they attempted to turn the classroom into a battlefield, you performed your task with honor. And to everyone who has been selected and is reading this, please stop acting as though you are responsible for their failure. They weren't misled by you. You put them to the test. You didn't leave them behind. You outgrown them. Because maintaining them was never the test. It was time to make them public. They didn't merely make a mistake. They messed up the very thing they were meant to do. And today, haunted by the version of themselves they could have found, they live in the pain of unfulfilled potential. If only they had recognized your true self. You're moving lighter now, though. Confusion has given way to clarity. Pain has given way to peace. Closure is not what you're after. The closure is you. Additionally, the next level always opens without apology whenever the universe determines that you passed your test. The lesson was never for them alone, so keep getting up. It was intended to demonstrate the type of light you possess and the consequences of trying to lower it, only to become blinded by your own shadows. 6th place. For a sensation, they traded the future. They are now reduced to ashes. Selected one. How can you tell someone that they lost a destiny rather than just a person? That they lost a movement in their pursuit of a moment? Some people are unaware that they are not moving toward liberation when they turn away from a heavenly connection. They're headed straight for starvation. Can you see it now? You weren't betrayed by them alone. Everything that was connected to you was betrayed. Your vitality wasn't fleeting. It has a legacy. It carried the wisdom of lifetimes, the repair of ancestral errors, and the mending of generations. You were not sent to amuse. You were sent to set up. But for a feeling, they sacrificed their future. They now have regret in their bones and smoke in their lungs. The clever lady constructs her home, while the foolish one destroys it with her own hands. Proverbs 14:1. They were blind to the fact that your love was not a business. It changed things. Furthermore, change is never simple. It requires maturity, accountability, and presence. That was not what they had anticipated. They therefore aimed for something simpler, quicker, more shiny, and devoid of the need for evolution. They traded something eternal for something transient, just like Esau did when he sold Jacob his birthright in a moment of weakness in exchange for a bowl of stew. Esau was hungry for a day. His death reverberated indelibly. The people who fumbled you didn't suddenly lose their comfort. Their covenant was broken. In their mayhem, you were the blueprint, the mediator, and the calm voice. They thought you were just a phase, but you were the cornerstone of their future. Let's face it, though. How many people long for peace, but flee from the one who offers it? How many people claim to seek meaning, yet are unable to remain motionless long enough to hear it? Keep your confidence intact. The rewards will be abundant. Hebrews 10:35. They believed that by selecting attention, ego, and lust, they were choosing themselves. But how can you reject the person given to repair your identity and still select yourself? They equated short-term approval with long-term worth, and now they travel, resting beside bodies that seem more like distance than warmth, caressing hands that don't feel like home. Examine Whitney Houston's life. Millions of people loved him, yet he was surrounded by people who encouraged distraction rather than self-control. She was a soul destined for greatness, a voice for a generation. However, instead of supporting her in upholding her heritage, many people in her immediate vicinity sold her future for a feeling. There are those all around you who are unable to bear the burden of your contributions. They claim to have desired profundity, but they fled when it appeared in the form of your face, steady, honest, and sacred. Why? Because legacy demands that you develop. To become who they were meant to be, are they prepared to lose themselves? Most don't. Thus, they withdraw rather than rise. They reject rather than receive. They now sit in solitude, troubled by the things they lost and the things they can never regain. Wealth comes from the Lord's blessing without requiring agonizing labor. You were the one who would have broken curses, raised children differently, healed trauma, and brought purpose into homes built on pain. But they were too drawn to chaos and too dependent on their own noise to hear the whisper of eternity in your presence, according to Proverbs 10:22. They didn't just fumble love, they fumbled lineage. The verse reads, "If the people she attempted to guide had disregarded her advice out of fear or impatience, they would have missed their deliverance because it didn't come as they expected." Many of the people in your life did just that. Consider Harriet Tubman, who not only freed people, but also broke generations of bondage. Their path is broken, their soul is restless, their peace is gone, and their memories are filled with times when they could have chosen you, but chose not to. And they rejected your leadership because it required trust, and trust felt too risky. Now the price has been paid, slowly, subtly, and completely. What they exchanged for pleasure has soured, and what once seemed like an adventure now feels like a trap. Mark 8:36. Chosen one, don't you dare reduce your value because someone else lacked vision. You weren't asking for too much. You were giving all. You weren't difficult to love. You were difficult to replace. What shall it profit a man if he shall gain the entire world and lose his own soul? Let them continue to chase. Let them continue to scroll through empty rooms and shallow conversations. Let them replay the last time they felt alive because it was with you. That feeling wasn't chemistry. It was calling. It was divine design. It was legacy tapping them on the shoulder and asking, "Will you rise or will you retreat?" They backed off. Because once a chosen one leaves, the portal closes. You are more than just the fire. You are the foundation. And once the blueprint is gone, there is no rebuilding. Therefore, let them sit in the ashes, try to make fire out of smoke, and hold hands with people who do not speak the language of their soul. Keep rising. Keep choosing depth in a world that is obsessed with surface. You are here to build forward, not to prove your value to those who sold you for a thrill. You are here to prove what the universe always knew, that you are the reset, that you are the root, that your presence is strategic, sacred, and stamped by heaven. They chose the wind, and now they're scattered. But you are planted, you are rising, you are eternal. Number 7, you reflected their truth, so they smashed the mirror. Selected one. Have you ever felt that your very existence made people uncomfortable, even when you did nothing wrong? It's odd how some people react to authenticity, not with appreciation, but with aggression. That's not because of who you are. Keep investing in what echoes, not what flatters. Legacy changes everything quietly. They weren't offended by your words. They were pierced by your energy. Your calm made their chaos clear. You weren't the problem. You were the mirror. And mirrors don't lie. They just reflect what's already there. You see, when your presence carries truth, it exposes everything people try to hide. Have I become your enemy by telling you the truth? Galatians 4:16. The truth. They never hated you. They hated the version of themselves they saw when you walked in the room. Your integrity made their manipulation impossible to ignore. You didn't embarrass them or make fun of them. You just made them face the aspects of themselves they had been avoiding for years. Think of Malcolm X. He didn't sugarcoat his words or dim his fire. He spoke what many were too proud to admit and too scared to hear. That's what truth-tellers do. You weren't showing off. You were showing up raw, grounded, and sincere. No performance, no pretenses. And that threatened people who were still auditioning for acceptance. In exchange, they are frequently portrayed as villains by those who are unwilling to change. They called you too intense, too emotional, and too real. But in reality, they meant, you make me feel exposed. And when you've spent your entire life acting, exposure is unsettling. In Luke 8:17, it is stated that nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. They were looking for someone to affirm their limitations rather than for change. But you were sent to reveal, not to encourage their stagnation. Like Frida Kahlo, whose fearless, unvarnished art reflected pain, identity, and truth in ways people weren't prepared to accept. She was criticized, misinterpreted, and even attacked, not for causing harm, but for exposing what was true. Your presence was intended to awaken them, and when truth awakens, it shakes everything false. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overtaken it. You are that same kind of mirror. Your gift isn't loud, it's honest. And not everyone wants honesty. So instead of facing themselves, they turned against you. Instead of accepting their healing, they destroyed the reflection. Why do so many people sabotage the one person who at last makes them feel seen? John 15. Look at Robin Williams. He was joy personified. They blamed the mirror because they weren't prepared for the light, and now they perform for people who have never met the real them. They live shallow lives with shallow validation, plagued by the reflection you showed them, the one they chose to ignore. However, beneath that happiness lay depth, struggle, and brilliance. Many people were unable to see past the surface. They wanted to laugh, but were unable to deal with his truth. Many of the people around him use humor to cover up their own darkness. Your presence does the same, revealing the layers, and not everyone has the courage to stay when the mask comes off. You didn't come to be ripped. You came to awaken, and they weren't prepared. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. They are now trying to forget you. You moved on, not because you didn't care, but because you understood something powerful. You don't dim the truth to make people comfortable with their own denial. Every phony friendship, hollow smile, and silent moment reminds them of what they had in you. The mirror, the clarity, the rare presence that didn't ask for masks, but invited truth. Think of Prince Diana, a woman whose quiet grace and deep integrity shook the image of royalty. They act as though they've changed. They create fragile circles that can't handle depth. Because she was honest, she became a mirror for the entire system, not just for people, as the palace wanted compliance. Mirrors are not welcome in halls of illusion, and neither were you. So let them tell their story and develop their narrative. Because people forget conversations, but they never forget how your presence made them feel seen, even if they weren't prepared to handle it. You don't need to fix what they broke, and you don't need to chase down your reputation in rooms you weren't meant to be in. Let them act as though they left stronger, while their spirit still remembers the reflection. You were never supposed to calm their delusions. You were supposed to hold up the mirror and leave if they broke it. According to Proverbs 9:7-8, whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. They remained blind, not because truth was difficult, but rather because it was unavailable. However, truth does not pursue. They continue to look for that feeling, the clarity, the conviction, the peace beneath your words, in crowded spaces, in shallow friendships, and in hollow accomplishments. But it never lands because your presence was revelation rather than imitation. It doesn't apologize. So rise now, chosen one, not as the villain they wrote into their story, but as the truth they were too scared to embrace, because while they're still running from the mirror, you became the light. You were never there to judge them. You were there to reflect the version of themselves that they could have become if only they had chosen healing over hiding. Music. Number 8. You served as the model, and now they're stuck with unreliable, low-quality copies. Selected one. Have you ever observed how people strive for the final product but disregard the steps necessary to get there? Isn't it amazing that someone can abandon the original masterpiece and then spend their entire life chasing knockoffs and still be perplexed as to why nothing ever feels right again? Let's be honest without filters. They tossed it away because it needed to be built, not because it was broken. Because real construction requires commitment, and commitment, as you know, shows who is serious about legacy and who just wants the appearance of loyalty. You were the blueprint, the foundation, the raw design that held vision, strength, depth, and divine alignment. You didn't just show there, you showed them what could be. Your presence supplied more than camaraderie. It offered creative energy. Proverbs 24:3-4. A house is built by wisdom, and it is established by understanding. Its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. They didn't have the eyes for greatness, so they rushed toward what was quick and gaudy, toward replicas, toward comfort. You set an example. You loved with vision, and you poured out from overflow. However, they couldn't see the architecture. They only saw the dust. They saw you in progress and called it a mess, not realizing that the empire was already being framed. Like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla, who had power but vision, Tesla is now living in spiritual shacks without a foundation, wondering why everything keeps falling apart. Tesla was the model for future electricity, but many people rejected him because his ideas were too complex and multi-layered. You weren't just there to love, you were there to level. They didn't rise on their own, they rose under your presence. Your love didn't just comfort, it cultivated. Your wisdom didn't just advise, it activated. But because you didn't require performance, they mistook your peace for passivity, and they missed it entirely. People chased the name with fame, while the true originator was ignored. Does that sound familiar? Psalm 127:1 states that, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain." They are now attempting to mimic your movements and quote your words as if they were made up, but they are missing the magic. However, you cannot replicate what was created by divine instruction. You can borrow language, but you cannot borrow legacy. In other words, you were the blueprint. Because what Beyoncé carries isn't just skill, it's blueprint energy, years of sacrifice, vision, and spiritual alignment that you can't replicate. And once someone messes up the original, the copies start to fall apart. Take a look at her. How many artists have attempted to replicate her style, work ethic, and essence, only to fail? And like her, you weren't just using your talent, you were using your purpose. As a result, they're stuck with the echo of your impact, rather than just fake connections, and they know it. Every attempt to replicate the connection fails because you are the model, and every imitation feels ineffective. It was not your job to persuade them. You weren't sent to beg for recognition. You were sent to design what couldn't be seen until it was built. And once the mold is broken, nothing fits right again. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. Ephesians 2:10. For example, Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and ridiculed for pursuing theme parks. But he was creating a legacy while others were stuck chasing praise. They mistook blueprints for burden, believing that if it wasn't finished, it wasn't valuable. However, anything divine takes time, and they weren't patient enough to build alongside you. Zechariah 4:10 states, "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." He was the architect of wonder, and the world now stands on his vision. You too possess the kind of soul that inspires others to dream, build, and see. And tragically, they left before it was completed. They scroll, looking for a familiar energy in people who look like you, talk like you, and maybe even post like you, but don't feel like you. And that's the real loss. Because your presence wasn't an act, it was activation. Now you've moved on, still glowing, still building something real. No matter how they present it, you were the starting point, the genuine, the unique, the once-in-a-lifetime alignment that they will never be able to replicate, because essence cannot be replicated. They are stuck in a world without blueprints, patching together borrowed wisdom, recycled aesthetics, and lifeless connection. You were exalted, not abandoned, and the real is always rejected before it is revered. You were misunderstood, not because you were wrong, but because you were ahead. Let them adorn their flimsy structures with fake truth and act as though there is peace. And let them drown in show while you continue to lay brick with purpose. So, chosen one, don't you dare doubt your value because they left you. Number 9, they bet against you, and now they're paying the price. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why some people seem so confident in your downfall, as if they gained something from your struggle? Isn't it strange how they smile when you stumble, not realizing that the fall was part of your flight? They bet against you because they never understood what you carry. Their house may get attention, But yours will outlast empires because you became the music cornerstone while they played with copies, came from their support without realizing that your source was sacred. They didn't simply leave. Instead, they wagered against you. Now, they're losing more than just their pride. They're losing their position, proximity, and privilege because you don't simply lose the bet when you wager against someone God has chosen. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. They believed that abandoning you was a sign of strength, that rejecting, ghosting you would shatter something inside of you, but instead you multiplied. The same way Michael Jordan was told he wasn't good enough to make the high school varsity basketball team, he wasn't angry. Instead, he constructed and used every doubt as fuel. Every time they tried to bury you, you didn't just survive, you grew. And not just in silence either, with divine strategy. They're sitting with empty hands, watching you rise through doors they no longer have keys to, because they believed that walking away would diminish you. Now, the very people who doubted him hang his jersey on their walls. That's what happens when people miscalculate your value. Their doubt becomes your documentation. But the only thing it accomplished was to make your path clear. Matthew 19:30. While they were trying to gain influence, you were developing your character. While they were making fun of your patience, you were becoming an expert in your field. Isn't it funny how subtraction turns into expansion when you're walking with favor? Consider Oprah Winfrey. She was dismissed from her first TV job, ridiculed and undervalued, but her quiet consistency transformed rejection into a media empire. Your development wasn't loud, lethal, boastful, or unstoppable. Now, you're not just walking into blessings, you're becoming one. And the universe doesn't bless betrayal. It doesn't reward small minds for underestimating massive purpose. And you weren't out here performing. The very people who believed she would fade away now study her strategy. That's what happens when someone bets against a destiny that wasn't theirs to understand. They didn't just bet wrong, they bet against the divine. According to Psalm 135:14, they sit in the audience while your life becomes the stage they are no longer invited to. Every door they thought they'd dominate closed. Every platform they assumed they'd control gone. And the spotlight had found you. You were preparing. You weren't trying to fit in. You were chosen to stand out. People who doubted Elon Musk now have no choice but to acknowledge the infrastructure he laid down. He was counted out by critics, dismissed by investors, and even kicked out of companies he helped build. This isn't because he chased it, but because he aligned himself with it. Let's face it, they lost more than just a person. They lost the power you brought, the insight, the glow, the gravity of your presence. Being close to you wasn't luck, it was access. And now that access is taken away, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Legacy does that. It silences noise with structure. According to Psalm 118:22, let them sit in the quiet of their own decisions. Let them scroll past your accomplishments with half-likes and concealed regret. And let them act unconcerned while secretly lamenting their mistakes. The truth is that the rise wasn't retaliation, but revelation. And you didn't succeed despite them. You saw it now, don't you? They weren't prepared to walk with you because they still needed to see you fall to feel tall. But you weren't built to stay down. You recalibrated. You refined. You rose. And now they have to deal with the fact that you won, because heaven already declared it, and they were never part of the long-term plan. And while they were busy measuring your steps, you were learning to fly. So, chosen one, don't look back. Don't dim your light out of sympathy. They made their bet, and they lost. Your name now echoes in every room they thought was theirs, and every opportunity they tried to block now opens only for you. Number 10. Their betrayal created the beast, and now they regret waking it up. Chosen one, have you ever noticed how the very people who attempted to break you ended up creating the version of you they now fear? It's ironic that betrayal never ends the chosen. It awakens them. And you didn't just beat the odds. You became the one they can no longer reach. Because power doesn't beg to be seen. To be clear, they did not destroy you. Rather, they defined you. That moment of betrayal, the silence, the abandonment, the lie, did not weaken you. Rather, it activated you. This is because chosen ones do not fall and remain down. Instead, they rise stronger, wiser, and more focused than before. They believed they were crushing you, but instead, they cracked open the very force that was sleeping inside. They believed the knife would kill you, but you used it to break relationships, carve new boundaries, and sever everything that once held you back. They didn't break the spirit in you. Instead, they broke the delusion that you needed their approval, their loyalty, and their presence to thrive. You meant to hurt me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done. Genesis 50:20. As with Nelson Mandela, who was betrayed by his country and imprisoned for 27 years, isolation was supposed to silence him, but it actually refined him. And when he emerged from that prison, he became the very leader they never thought they would see again. And from that fracture, you rebuilt, not because of the pain, but because of it. The energy you now possess is stronger, wiser, and more powerful than before. It is the kind of energy that cannot be undone. Even though I walk through trouble, you protect my life. You extend your hand against my enemy's rage. Psalm 138:7. They didn't see you fall apart. They set you on a path to growth. The suffering turned into fuel. You didn't just survive. You changed. You speak differently now. You walk with purpose. You breathe with peace. Because what they tried to bury became your rebirth. Do you sense how your vision has cleared and your discernment has sharpened? Betrayal has a way of revealing aspects of yourself that you were unaware existed. But he knows the way I take, and when he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Job 23:10. They see it in your glow, in your peace, in the way you rise without asking permission. They expected you to fold, but you forged something new, and now every time they watch you, they're witnessing the beast they unintentionally built. You're out here building empires in silence, while they're still healing from wounds of confusion and envy. The very heart they attempted to shatter is now creating something they'll never touch again. Take Lady Gaga, who was publicly humiliated, disregarded, and even betrayed by industry insiders who believed she was too unusual, too daring, or too much. However, she took every criticism and used it to her advantage, reinventing herself, elevating her sound, and becoming an icon, not because of the criticism, but because of it. Like you, your power was born in the pain, not praise, and now they regret it, not because they particularly loved you, but because they know they will never be able to access this version of you again. That version is gone, not bitter, but reborn. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them, and he delivers them from all their troubles. Psalm 34:17. And you're no longer the one begging for closure. That version is the one that gives without question, shows up without expectations, and believes in people without needing proof. Let them watch from the shadows. Let them scroll through your victories with silent awe and hidden ache. Because while they were plotting against you, you were getting ready. While they were making fun of your journey, you were becoming unquestionable. And they didn't just lose someone to talk to. You don't need an apology to heal, and you don't need a seat at their table when you're building your own palace. Like LeBron James, who was betrayed by fans, questioned by analysts, and despised for his moves, he turned criticism into crowns. Every betrayal became a blueprint, and now even his biggest critics acknowledge they bet wrong. They lost the only person who saw their potential before they even believed in it themselves. And that kind of regret doesn't fade. It lingers. It haunts. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me. Therefore, I thank them not for their love, but for their betrayal, which created the beast. This beast does not seek retribution. Instead, it speaks in results. You no longer need validation. You are the proof. As stated in Psalm 28:7, chosen one, your growth is not retaliation, it is revelation. This is heaven's way of telling you that you passed the test they failed, that you did not crumble, and that you ascended. They can now only watch from behind locked doors, from disconnected timelines, with regret-stained memories. Let them sit with the silence that followed your departure. If you're still here, it means that this message wasn't just words. It was confirmation that everything they did to break you only strengthened your foundation. Let them feel the weight of what they tried to break, but only awakened, because they will never be able to access this version of you, this warrior, this builder, this flame. You didn't just survive what was supposed to destroy you. You evolved as a result of their betrayal, and now you're rising, not in spite of what happened, but because of it. Let them feel regret. Let them observe. Let them sit in the shadow of their decisions, and you're not slowing down or looking back. If this message resonated with you deeply, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with another chosen person who may be losing sight of their value. You're not folding for anyone who couldn't see the divine blueprint in front of them. You're rising forward with purpose, peace, and power. And to all of you who have persevered through this journey, thank you for being here, for listening, for walking this road of awakening with open eyes and an open heart. Your presence matters greatly. To those of you who have given through, thank you sincerely. You never know who needs the reminder that they were never the problem. They were always the proof. Your contribution enables us to keep bringing life to places that the world tends to forget. If you are unable to donate, know that you are equally appreciated. Your energy, focus, and healing are invaluable. May the road ahead be clear. May your strength never falter. and may each scar serve as a reminder of how far you have come. Because you were never average, you were anointed, you were appointed, and you were selected for this moment. Keep rising. You're only getting started. May favor seek you, peace surround you, and power flow through you.